Hello and welcome to Heart Standard. My name is Joel Sked and I am joined by James Kearney. How's it going, James?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I was adamant that we'd start this bang on time, but just as I hit go live, it changed on my laptop to 1 minute past 6. But here we are.
Old habits die hard.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we're getting closer. It's not half an hour late or 15 minutes late. So I think 1 minute's fine. We are here to chat about an article you wrote yesterday. It went on the site today. It is about the right back role. Again, it's something that a lot of fans will have chatted about over the last few weeks, just because when deciding on a team, it's either Dexter, Lemibikisa, or Nathaniel Atkinson at right back. So I asked you to dig into the data, dig into what you have seen with your own eyes in terms of the performances for both, and look at kind of who shines the most, potential solutions, and then looking at maybe potential options further down the line. I think it's probably an article and a video that a series that we might turn into, just looking at the different positions on the pitch with the transfer window coming up and seeing where improvements can be made, where the team are strong. But yeah, started at right back because I think that's one of the areas of the pitch where there's no one that's really held down a position. But before we get into it, of course, I will have a message from our sponsors, and one of these days I'll go into it seamlessly. Today is not one of these days, because I asked you, as your boiler on its last legs. Viessmann, renowned for their exceptional German engineering, is a leader in the boiler industry worldwide. They've now partnered with Scotland's own award-winning installation, MPH Boilers, for a collaboration that's a match made in Scotland. When it comes to heating, Viessmann boilers stand out with efficiency and reliability thanks to their advanced technology and with the local expertise of MPH Boilers. You're guaranteed top-tier installation and service. Together, they're offering an unbeatable deal. A free internet controller with every Viessmann boiler, making it effortless to control your heating. Plus, they're throwing in the first year's service for free, ensuring your peace of mind. If you've been thinking about upgrading your boiler, there's never been a better opportunity. With Viessmann's world-class engineering and MPH Boilers award-winning service, your home heating is in the best hands. Viessmann and MPH Boilers, it's a match made in Scotland again. Don't wait until it's too cold. Check them out today and step into a warmer, more efficient home. Speaking of which, my house is absolutely freezing. My missus is about to put the heating on, thankfully. Anyway, right back.
You should go speak to, right?
Yeah, I know. I think I should go to their showroom in Dunfermline, I believe. So definitely something I will consider. So right back, before we kind of dive into each player individually, from your own eyes, from what you've seen since covering Hearts, since looking at the data did yesterday, was there anything that surprised you from what you saw, what you found on research in terms of Atkinson or Lemibikisa, or did it really match up with what you expected?
I think on the whole it probably did, yeah. I think there are a couple of areas that I'm sure we'll dig into where I was a bit surprised by either how well or how poorly a player was doing in a couple of specific areas. I mean, there were some where it was quite extreme, where I didn't think it'd be you knew it'd be bad, but you didn't think it'd be that bad, or you thought it'd be good, but you didn't think it'd be that good. But I think I think the data largely matches up with what most fans have seen this season. And that is basically I think in a nutshell is the idea is basically Atkinson is pretty solid at the back. That surprised me a little bit. I think his defensive stats are actually really good in terms of things like his tackles and interceptions and pressures. When you all adjust those for possession, he's well above average, which is great. In fact, there's a radar on screen there as well for us. So,
yes, sorry for those listeners of a podcast. I've put up some of the graphics that James used in his article, but it was you won't be missing out on anything. But we'll kind of talk through. So if you hear us referencing a diagram, that's what it will be. Again, it'll be found on the article itself. So that's me popped up to Nathaniel Atkinson's in comparison to league average, and just I suppose because we're talking about Atkinson, I've got him on. We'll just maybe dive into him individually at the moment, because you mentioned about his defensive side and the fact that you're maybe surprised that the stats showed up so well for Atkinson compared to the league average on a defence side. Because we've seen there's been a couple of comments on social media that have been very critical of Nathaniel Atkinson, and I think, well, I understand where they're coming from. I actually, watching him this season, I thought he's been pretty good, especially the start of the season defensively. I think he is, if we're going to compare him in one kind of metric or area of the game to Lemibikisa, it's that one-on-one duel. It's when he's coming up against a winger. I actually think Atkinson's really good. I think he's really good at moving his feet. I think he can move quickly, and he's quite good at, if not blocking a cross, getting enough on the cross to stop it going in the direction where the winger wants it to. And then we saw at the weekend is Lemibikisa. I just think there's still areas defensively that he needs to work on. And I have to say, Graham makes a very good point in the comments. Have to remember that Lemibikisa is only 20, so he'll be making mistakes. That's very true. He is... he's not played a hell of a lot of first-team football. He's been on Rotherham. He's played a couple of times for Wolves. But you saw at the weekend, specifically against someone as good as Matty Kennedy, that he really struggled with his positioning, his body shape, whereas I think in that instance, Atkinson probably would have been better against Kennedy. But then the attacking side. Talk to me about the attacking side. Because there's times this season where he's got into great positions in the final third, and it's just been lacking.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big downside of Atkinson, certainly going by the stats and going from the data. You're right. I mean, in these kind of defensive situations, these 1v1s, he's actually pretty good. He's operating well above average, in fact, in those areas. Not good in the air, mind. I think that's important to say. He's well below average in terms of the amount of aerial duels he wins and the amount of successful aerial duels per game and all that kind of stuff. So he is bad in the air. There is that. But yeah, going forward, that's where the big frustration lies, I think, with Atkinson, because he does get forward in good positions a lot. We know that the way the Hearts attack, it's often a bit lopsided. There's often more attacks going down the right-hand side. And Atkinson does get himself into great positions, but the raw stats are there where he's not producing enough in terms of his crosses into the box, successful crosses, successful entries into the box, and just generally contributing to creating chances. He's not really doing much of that. And a big part of it is, I think, where he's losing the ball and how he's losing the ball.
Pop that up just now where he's...
We've got another wee graphic on the screen there. Now, this one, it's basically, for those who are listening in, it shows you a football pitch, and it shows you the areas where Atkinson has lost the ball this season. There's lots of little X's all over it on the right-hand side. The X's represent either errors or miscontrols or dispossessions. And there's also a few little D's on there as well, when the D represents a failed dribble. So what we can see is overwhelmingly Atkinson's losing the ball through errors, miscontrols, and dispossessions. So he's getting tackled. He's not controlling the ball properly, or he's taking a poor touch and he's getting robbed. That's what's happening consistently over and over and over again. He's not actually losing the ball that often when he's dribbling. That's actually quite rare. It's actually just like it's when he's it's not when he's going at full sprint or taking a man on in a 1v1 situation. It's just more kind of when the ball's at his feet, he can get robbed, and it's happening a lot. And obviously that's a big problem, because it stops attacking moves are breaking down just as they're getting into a really dangerous area, which is not great.
Yeah, that I think. And sorry to come in and interrupting you, but I think that very much tallies with the eye test. Because there's a lot of times where, especially he moves, if he's out wide and he starts to move kind of centrally, he will. I find at times he'll take his eye off the ball, and because he's like searching, looking for an option, and then the next thing you know, he's got the ball and it's kind of been pinched off him, or he doesn't trust his left foot the way that we've seen Lemibikisa trust his left foot, whether it was on international duty with Jamaica recently, or when he cuts in and puts in a cracking cross. Whereas Atkinson really wants to stay on his right side, or use his right foot.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the best example of this, and it feels a bit unfair because it was a particularly bad game from him and from the whole team in general, but you look at the 5-0 win for Rangers at Ibrox, and how many times in that kind of opening 20 minutes, half an hour, did Atkinson get the ball out wide in a decent area and then just lose it, just gifted it away? And I think that's what that kind of graphic shows, is that you know that's unfortunately something that is a bit of his game. Now, of course, if you pull up that map for lots of other players in the league, it's going to look kind of similar, and that players are going to lose the ball in certain positions. But the thing that makes Atkinson stand out is the fact that it's 99, no, maybe not 99, but 95% of it's all through one thing. So it's like, that's obviously got an area where he's got to do better. So I think, in a nutshell, with Atkinson, it's actually defensively he's fine. Playing in a back four, he's fine. I think he's got the kind of defensive nous to do that, and he knows what he's doing there. It's when he starts getting further forward, that's when he's not contributing as much as he can, because we've seen it in previous seasons. I think you'd think when you look at Atkinson, you say getting forward should be one of his strengths. In terms of he's like athletic, he's great getting up and down, and he can play a bit of football. He's not like but there's definitely that thing where he's making the wrong decisions, I think is what it is, or he's not getting the ball under control quickly enough, and it's proving costly, I would argue. So that's why Atkinson, he's got his strengths, he's got his weaknesses, but as we'll see with Lemibikisa, it's a very similar story.
Yes, so we'll move on to Dexter Lemibikisa, and it's almost like a reverse of Atkinson in a way, in that this is Lemibikisa compared to the league average. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, the graphic that's up, Dexter Lemibikisa is in the red. The league average is in the blue, and Lemibikisa, I think we've seen it. So I'll bring up Scottish TV Gold says that it almost feels like. I think this is probably the most simple conclusion that we might get to. Almost feels like Atkinson would be first choice when we play a back four, and Lemibikisa when we play a back three. That we've seen Lemibikisa, as soon as he started against Spartans, he added came on against Spartans, I should say, showed real pace, and then you talked about his role in the Dundee game when he was really, really important then. And seen that when he does get into the final third, he can cause problems because he can go down the flank, he can cut in on his right, he's forward thinking, and he can put the ball into some really, really good dangerous areas. However, it's as a young fullback, wing back, the part of his game that needs to develop and come on, and part of the reason that he's on loan at Hearts is to sharpen up his defensive side of his game.
Yeah. So on the radar that we've got in front of us, there are four areas. There are the four kind of metrics where Lemibikisa is performing very poorly and compared to other right backs. One's turnovers, so just giving away the ball. We know that his passing can be ropey at times, and obviously it hits a lot of crosses, so there's a bit of mitigation there. Fine. Yeah. The one that's really concerning though is the amount of times he's dribbled past. So basically 14% of the time, when someone's in a 1v1 with Lemibikisa wins the ball. The other 86% of the time, no, it's not his. That is the worst rate of any right back or right wing back in the Premiership. It's the worst. Let's be clear. It's really below average. And okay, maybe it's a small sample size, maybe it's this or that, but that is a concern. And again, you think of the Kelly game at the weekend there, and that's exactly how it looked when he was up against Kennedy. Kennedy was giving him a torrid time. And then again, the other things as well that are similar to Atkinson. Again, he's not good in the air. He doesn't win many headers, either over the course of a game or proportionally when you look at it for each individual header. One plus side though is he doesn't give away that many fouls, which is good. Yep. Atkinson gives away around 2 or 3 times as many, but then Lemibikisa is very foul shy, which is excellent. That's something.
The only thing I was going to say about that is I wonder if that's a consequence of the fact that he maybe doesn't engage enough.
Or there's possible times as well where he's not even in a position where he can foul because he's too far forward or whatever, perhaps as well. That might so there are, obviously with all these stats, there's mitigation, there's reasons behind them and all the rest of it. But the good side with Lemibikisa is that actually he scores really well for things like deep progressions, which is passes or dribbles into the final third. He creates a good amount of XG from open play. Again, that's good. And his crossing stats, in terms of the overall accuracy, they're bang on the average. But in terms of the amount of successful crosses he gets per game, that's every That's an excellent rate he's got. It's one of the best rates in the league, actually. So for a player in his position, so there are it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's defensively, the stats would suggest that he probably can't be trusted to play in a back four, particularly if he's that vulnerable in 1v1 situations. But the flip side of that is that going forward, he's his crossing is good. It just depends on when he's crossing it, I suppose.
And so I've just I've thought this is Atkinson. I've put it Atkinson in the red, put radar on screen. Atkinson in the red, Lemibikisa in the blue, and this is their comparison. It was you could if you combine the two, you've probably got a more. You've certainly got a more rounded fullback, not a perfect fullback, but a more rounded.
Rounded fullback. If you combine the two, and then the best bits of both, and then find someone who can also head the ball, then all of a sudden, you've got a great right back. You've got one of the best in the league if you can get someone who can do a bit of it all.
And which brings me on to a short-term solution that you floated yesterday. I told you to run with it. I don't agree with it. I'd rather not see him play at right back. But you are of the view that if the game, I'm guessing you don't see this as every single weekend, but if the game, if there's a certain game that you could play Stephen Kingsley at right back.
I think it's an option. I do. Obviously, this season he's been playing mainly at the right of the back three. He's been playing on the right hand side of the defence. He's been looked absolutely fine on that part. So you'd imagine that actually being a left-footed player playing on the right side of defence, going by the eye test this season, from what we've seen, it doesn't seem to have bothered him. I don't think he's playing worse on the right than he is on through the middle or on the left, for instance.
Am I right in, sorry just to cut you off again, but am I right in saying when we spoke, I can't remember if we spoke to him or if it was yourself that went along to the press conference where he talked about how he quite enjoyed being on the right hand side of the defence?
Yeah.
Ball onto his left.
No, he did speak about that before. You're right, and he definitely did say he didn't really seem to mind. He's like, it doesn't really matter. I think so we should say as well. So we've got a radar on screen again. And it looks really encouraging. I would say take it with a pinch of salt. So the data we've got here, this is from Kingsley's over the first 2 months of the season when he was playing primarily at left back until obviously the back three came in. So he was playing left back during this stint. And he's getting compared to other left backs in the league and left wing backs in the league. So it's not an ideal comparison, but it gives us something to go on. It gives us an idea of how he plays as a fullback. The results are pretty encouraging. I think, defensively, in terms of tackles, interceptions, pressures, all adjusted for possession, he's doing great. He does get dribble past a little bit more than you would like, though. He is below average there. That's a bit of a cause for concern. But he doesn't give away fouls. He wins a hell of a lot of headers. His aerial win rate, I think, is in the top 2% of players who've played in that position in the league. And when he won the ball, he's a really solid passer of the ball. And obviously, his crossing's immense. His crossing's absolutely brilliant for a Scottish Premiership fullback. He's the radar there. I mean, the successful crosses per 90, it's one of the highest rates in the entire league. The amount of XGs creating from open play, again, it's well above the league average. I guess there's one caveat, though, and it's a very obvious one that's probably jumped everyone's mind straight away. Okay, playing on the left and hitting all those brilliant crosses is one thing. Doing it on the right, that's where it's like, well, can you replicate that? Can you do that again? So I watched back because there's been 2 occasions this season where Kingsley has played right back. Both were against Rangers. One was for the final half hour in the League Cup semi-final. One was for the second half of the 1-0 defeat at Tynecastle back in December, I believe it was. So I watched them both back in order to see how he got on. I've got to say, I thought defensively he looked absolutely fine. He did find himself pinned back quite a lot. He seemed quite reluctant to get forward. I would probably put that down to the fact that he was marking Abdallah Sima, who obviously warrants close attention. You probably don't want to get too far forward. And disappointingly, he didn't hit a cross in either game. So I don't know. It's the short answer. People will say that in itself is maybe evidence that it can't be done or he struggles. that might be true. I would argue that games against Rangers aren't representative of games against, of your average Scottish Premiership match. So yeah, I think that's what it all comes down to. I think because we know that if he's out on the right-hand side and he gets the ball played to him, he'll have to take a touch onto his left and hit the cross. That extra second or two can make all the difference attacking.
Yeah.
And also it's a completely different type of delivery you get then, because it's no longer an in-swinger, it's an out-swinger and so on. So, that would be the one thing where it's like, oh, I'm really not sure about it. But see, in terms of everything else, I think he could absolutely do it, yeah.
I think if you were... So again, for example, home at Livingston wouldn't play him at right back. Even away at St Mirren, wouldn't play there. But Rangers in the semi-final, if we got... Still swithering whether if I was to pick the team and the game was tomorrow, whether I'd go with a back three or a back four, just because of how we kind of struggled against Rangers this season in a back three. And if you're to play a back four, he would probably give you a bit more assurance in that sense. And then you're almost playing like playing a back four like Kelly have done this season, where you could have essentially four centre backs. Obviously, you would have Cochrane at left back, but again, he's good defensively. Offers a bit more going forward, but with Kingsley, Rolls, and Kent, you've got guys who are comfortable in different positions. So that's definitely something where I'd be open to the idea of it.
I think particularly now that Kent's back as well.
Yes,
where there is a bit, and obviously Rolls are back from the Asian Cup and all the rest of it. There are a little bit more options now than there were going back maybe a month or so ago. So I think that, I think it could definitely happen now. But again, it's that thing of, part of me, even though I'm floating this suggestion, I think Kingsley could absolutely do right back. But part of me thinks he's probably best in the middle as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I think can he do it? Absolutely. But is that what's best for the team? Maybe not. I don't know. But I think Kingsley's more incapable of doing it. Just the one reservation I would have would be the crossing thing, and just the fact that he is a left-footed player playing on the right, and that does make a difference. But to be honest, I think we won't really know until we see it in action, I suppose.
Yeah, and Kingsley has played how many positions he played? 4 positions this season. Or if you count the different positions in centre back, essentially maybe 5. So, or no, maybe 5 or 6. Right back, right centre back, middle of back 3, left of back 3, part of a back 4 in the centre, and a left back and a left wing back. So he's shown his versatility. Aye. He's aside from Kent and Shanklin being our best player this season, most consistent player as well. So yeah, it's
in terms of outfield players, I'd imagine he's probably in the top 5 for minutes as well this season.
Yeah,
I think says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll kind of finish up by looking by answering, I think, a question that both of us would probably agree with, and I would imagine many Hearts fans would agree with, is looking ahead to the summer and whether right back is going to be a position that's high up on the priority list. I imagine it would be. And you look at, I think Barry spoke with Stephen Naismith last week, or it was after the presser on last Friday, and I think he asked him about looking ahead to the summer and asked about the right back. I think Naismith wasn't overly committal with the right back, but he just analysed the situation, the fact that no one has kept the role, and Lembikisa's on loan, and I just wonder if that's an area that's going to you look to upgrade. Like Atkinson, I think there's definitely a player. Take this, remove this radar. I think there's definitely a player there. He's as we've discussed. There's attributes that you want in the team, and there's probably scope for maybe further improvement. But the right back is an area where you just analyse the season and you just look at that's one that can be upgraded, and without too much, really shouldn't be too much difficulty to do so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think you look at it, and basically ever since Atkinson had that injury, let's not forget he started the season brilliantly.
Really well, yeah, absolutely.
And he got that injury, and basically since then, there's just been everyone and anyone's had a go. Like obviously Atkinson and Lemibikisa have been kind of swapping it since the turn of the year, but before that, Civic's been played there. Forrest is playing at wing back on occasion. Oda's playing wing back on occasion. We even saw Forrester from the B team was on the bench for the League Cup semi-final against Rangers. So it's clear that I think just the amount of rotation, the amount of different players that have played there already this season, that alone should tell you that, that's clearly a work in progress. It's clearly an area where someone else is needed, particularly if Lemibikisa going back to Wolves on loan as well. We can only assume that that'll be happening and he won't be getting his loan extended, but who knows? So yeah, I mean, that alone means you need to. The fact that you've got Atkinson entering the final 12 months of his deal, again, this becomes a pivotal time to try and really get reinforcements in. Civic also entering the final 12 months of his deal, another senior player that could play there once Lemibikisa goes. So, it could be, it might even be a situation where Hearts end up signing 2 right backs this summer. That wouldn't surprise me at all, particularly if either Atkinson or Civic end up getting sold this summer, so Hearts can cash in while they can. So. Yeah, I think there will be a lot of movement in that position. I think that in that area of the squad, and to be honest, I don't know, are we going to start speculating about who it could be?
Well, I was going to say before we finish up, because I'm aware it's nearly 5:30 and you need to shoot, but that's probably something as well as looking at the different areas in the squad and assessing, doing something similar to what you've done with right back. In terms of who we've got at the club just now, that's probably something closer to the transfer window we'll do and look at potential options in different areas. And I mean, the obvious one, and Graham mentioned it straight off the bat, you mentioned it in your article, is I'd be looking at Ryan Strain at St Mirren. He looks really impressive anytime I've seen him. He's had his injury issues this season. He got taken off at half-time last weekend against Motherwell. I'm not sure. I'll need to double-check if he's going to be fit to face Hearts on Saturday. He's always been really impressive. And again, similar to Atkinson, he's played, both of them have been in the Australia squad. When I looked at it earlier on in the season, there wasn't too much difference between them, kind of stats-wise. I think Strain's constantly played as a wing-back for St Mirren, and he's looked really good going forward. Not sure, again, whether he is... I'm not seeing enough of him to make a real judgment on the defensive side of his game. But again, he's playing for St Mirren, who are a relatively good defensive unit, and they put a lot of stock in that. So you'd imagine he's capable there. Whether he's someone we do look at, I'm not sure if he is on. Well, obviously the club will be very well aware of him. Whether he's on the radar as a potential option, I'm not too sure. But again, certainly be other options around. But yeah, I think Ryan Strain's obviously a name that people will know and gravitate towards.
Yeah, I mean, it follows on the pattern from what we've seen already. In the build up to the summer transfer window, with he's experienced Premiership player, got a good 2 years of experience in the league under his belt. He's done well at his current club. He's ready for a bigger move, and he's out of contract, and he's a good age as well. I think he's 27, I believe. So again, very similar to the likes of Spittle, Penrice, Danda, similar sort of guys. And again, it would be a bit of a coup, I think, if Hearts were able to go and do it again, get another team's one of their better players and pinching them again would be great.
Yeah, but my only reservation is I don't know how much of an upgrade he is on Atkinson. I think Atkinson, as we said, he's got his flaws, but I think he can be improved. And whether Strain takes that right back slot to another level, I have my doubts. Honestly. Kyle puts in a great post here on Facebook, says about right back answer, it's not a priority. Atkinson's flaws are over exaggerated. The perception of him and his reputation affect him most. If we sit back and invite pressure, of course his flaws will be exposed. If we improve our counter pressing and pressing structure while playing a high line, we'll reduce the burden on Natty and see his quality. Can invert, underlap, overlap and play between the lines almost a 10. Great carrying, passing ability and 1v1, especially against tricky wingers like Johan. I think it's some of that, I think a lot of that is pretty spot on in terms of a defence of Atkinson, and definitely I think there is position for him in the squad, but I think it's an area that I do think he needs to improve to make that position his own. Especially if someone comes in.
But I think the thing that kind of Kyle's getting at, and I think it's something that I agree with actually, is the fact that bits where Atkinson's not doing well enough, in my view, they can be coached, they can be improved, that can be taught, that can be worked on. You know, I do think that when you look at the raw attributes Atkinson has, I think there is a good player in there, but I just maybe needs a bit more work. But yeah, I'd say again, ideally, you probably want someone who's a kind of a best of both worlds with Atkinson and Lemibikisa. I think there are areas of game, like Atkinson's game, where again, it's not just that he's not performing to the level you'd hope. You know, the right back for the third best team in the country would perform at. It's like he's performing below the league average, and it's like that's, you know, okay, nobody's perfect, nobody's going to be, you know, but there are a couple of areas where it is a bit not great.
Right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you can. That would help us greatly. Thank you very much for the support and listening to us. And those who subscribe, we'll be back tomorrow to preview the game at the weekend in Paisley against St Mirren. And coming on this, in terms of articles on the site tomorrow, got an in-depth feature on a bit about the environment behind the scenes and how a lot of things work at Hearts in terms of kind of team spirit, squad building, etc., etc. Spoke to Stephen Naismith at the start of the week around it, and we'll obviously have stuff from the press conference and injury updates, etc., etc. But until tomorrow, thank you very much, and goodbye, everyone.
Bye.